them all what I'm made up. Strut down the hall, won't stop till I get enough.
Okay, so you know how we always kind of picture these top secret military plans, like, locked rooms, maybe even some lasers, and like definitely some serious looking briefcases.
Right, yeah.
Well, today we're diving into a news story that kind of suggests maybe sensitive information doesn't always travel through quite so conventional channels. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is really interesting, actually. We're looking closely at this AP report. The headline really caught our eye. Hegseth slams journalist after officials text Yemen plans to a group chat in a secure app.
Yeah, forget the vault for a minute, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the headline really sets the stage, but what we're trying to unpack in this deep dive is like, what's the substance of this report and what might it tell us about, how things actually work?
Yeah, let's get right to the core of it. The AP report is claiming that people within the Trump administration were having discussions related to Yemen and sharing them by text message in a Signal group chat.
And this wasn't just among government officials, was it? I mean, the report actually specifies that a journalist was part of this same group chat, so...
Right. Yeah, that's a key detail right there.
Yeah, that detail alone feels significant.
Absolutely. Now, the report doesn't get into the specifics, about these war plans, like the headline calls them. But the implication is that whatever information was being shared, it was definitely about the situation in Yemen. And there's no specific details on how in-depth it was or, what level of classification.
Okay, so this news comes out. How did the main people involved respond? The report focuses a lot on Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary at the time.
Yeah, according to the AP, Pete Hegseth addressed these reports while he was on his way to Hawaii for his first trip to the Indo-Pacific as defense secretary.
And his reaction was pretty strong, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, he straight up denied it. I mean, the AP quotes him saying point blank, nobody was texting war plans. And he also blamed the media, saying they were inaccurate in their reporting.
So let's stop here for a second and think about this from your perspective as a listener you're tuning in. Because you want to get the key points, even if we take Hegseth's word, that no formal war plans were actually texted. The fact that there were discussions happening about military operations in Yemen, and this was happening on an unclassified app like Signal, with a journalist in the group, that raises some questions about protocol, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it makes you think about the balance that has to exist between secure communication in military matters and the public's need and right to transparency, which the press, is a big part of. How do you make those two things work together when they often seem to clash?
The way they were communicating is a big part of this, right? Signal is often thought of as a secure app because of the end-to-end encryption, but it's still running on unclassified networks. So what does it mean when a platform like that is used for conversations that are, at the very least, touching on sensitive topics, even if they aren't full-blown war plans?
It's interesting to think about what war plans really means anyway, right? Even if we say, okay, fine, detailed battle strategies weren't being texted back and forth, could the information they shared still have been strategically important? Could it have revealed things like operational timelines or logistics, or even just given some insight into how the administration was approaching the whole Yemen situation? That kind of stuff that maybe should have been handled more carefully. The AP report doesn't really give us those specifics, so we're left wondering just how sensitive the information they were sharing actually was.
This also kind of highlights the role of the media, doesn't it? On one hand, we have to acknowledge that there's always the potential for misinterpretation or even, sensationalism when complex national security issues are being reported on. But on the other hand, a free press is so essential for holding people in power accountable, making sure the public knows about important stuff. And this report, regardless of what the plans actually were, seems like something the public should know about.
Absolutely. And it brings up this key question for you, the listener, who's trying to understand all this quickly and thoroughly, even if we say Hegseth's denial is true. The situation as it's been described makes us think about the communication protocols and security measures that are in place at the highest levels of government. I mean, what kinds of discussions are happening on what platforms, and what are the risks, even unintentional ones, that could come from those choices?
The AP report also gives us a glimpse into what else was happening in the news at the time this story came out. And it's important to remember that events don't happen in a vacuum.
Oh, for sure. To give you a better picture of that, the same AP News page had other headlines about important stuff happening. For example, there was a report on the UN deciding to reduce their staff in Gaza because of an Israeli strike, and then another headline about separate talks happening between the U.S. and Russia after the U.S. met with Ukrainian officials about a possible ceasefire. There was news about South Korea's second in command, and of course other political stuff happening in the U.S.
So this whole thing about the Yemen discussions happening in a Signal group, wasn't the only big story going on. It was just one piece of a much bigger and more complicated global situation.
Right, and that's crucial to remember with any news story. Things rarely happen in isolation, so understanding the context around them is always valuable.
Okay, so just to quickly recap what we talked about today, an AP News report said that officials in the Trump administration, including then Defense Secretary Hegseth, were reportedly discussing things related to Yemen in a Signal group chat that wasn't classified and that also had a journalist in it. And Hegseth denied that they were texting war plans and criticized how the media was reporting on it.
Yeah, and this whole situation, even with the denial, really emphasizes how complicated it is to balance the need for secure communication in sensitive areas with the need for transparency and the important role of the press. It also makes us think about what actually counts as sensitive information and whether certain communication channels are appropriate for different types of conversations.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. Given how fast and easy digital communication is these days, and how the news cycle never stops, how do governments strike a balance between operational security, which is so important, and the principles of transparency, and the vital role of a free press? And when you add in how widely available communication technology is, what are the potential benefits, but also the very real risks that could come from using it in sensitive situations?
That's a great question to think about.
Yeah, it really is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
Deal.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.